There's Oh no, 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 no. This is the end. That's not good for me. It's not good for me at all. Okay. Edge of Eternity. Conquered. Overall thoughts. Alright, so fresh off the dome right now. This ending, I'm assuming this is the ending and there's gonna be nothing else after this. This ending leaves a lot to be desired. I also think that the journey also wasn't quite there. So I'm left wanting for most of this story right now. And that leaves me disappointed. I would say overall I think the game is okay. I think it has problems with the story. I think it has problems with mechanics. I think it has problems with presentation. I think it has problems in every aspect of the game. And a lot of those problems are actually kind of front and center. And it's kind of hard to ignore them or to look past them because they're just kind of in your face all the time. You see them all the time and you... it's like they're a part of the game, but you know, they stick out. They're a distraction. And because they're so prevalent, they're distracting you a lot. But I would ultimately... I think when I say this game is okay, I think I'm giving it more credit than it deserves. Because something I'll touch on a little bit later is I think the characters in this game are what make this game for me. The story, the gameplay, the look, the presentation, the aesthetics, those just don't really do it for me that much. But the characters are pretty nice. I liked a lot of the characters, and you know, the voice acting had definitely propelled those characters to new heights for me. Something I will say is that I do tend to be a little bit harsher with indie games. It's kind of weird for me to say that I kind of have a higher standard when it comes to indie games. I'm not looking for AAA quality or anything like that, but I definitely do want some level of indie polish. And this is going to be totally unfair for me to say, but I feel like indie games can have the luxury, and yes, I understand that not all of them do, and not all of them can, but generally speaking, when I look at an indie game, I think you have the luxury of being able to put in the effort that AAA games can't. And I think this game does that, but it doesn't go all the way. It reaches a certain point and then it stops. And so I would definitely say that overall, this game is very rough around the edges. Extremely so. Yeah, and that's it. Yikes. Was it satisfying?
A voice lost for a world saved twofold. Such a small price to pay. Ah, I envy your friend, Cora.
Aren't we making a mistake by letting him roam free?
The third bearer represents a unique opportunity. One I do not wish to squander. He has finally paid the first price. And despite his reluctance, he is a man of duty. When the necessity arises, he will step up to it.
They are still out there.
The real war has yet to begin.
We will save. Telling me to press X. I am pressing X. Oh, my controller is off. That would... There we go. I was like, I would love to stay with this music. Alright. Music's muffled here. Alright, well. So yeah, the story, was it satisfying? No. I feel like I have a lot of significant problems with the story. Our journey is to save our mother. And during that journey, we adopt the quest of wanting to cure the corrosion. And then we gain a plot point of we have the seed of destruction in us. And then we gain the plot point of Oberyn is wanting to destroy the world. And then we get the plot point of the third bearer. And then we get the plot point of the gods are losing all of their power. And then we get the plot point of the Sanctorium are not the good guys. And it's just plot point after plot point after plot point. And the only plot point that gets resolved is Oberyn dies. Oh yeah, also we get the plot point of there's a war going on, by the way. We don't get to have any resolution with Mom. She goes out like a G. But I wish there was more there. There's just so much I want. And the problem is I think this game meanders too much in a lot of aspects. The exploration and things like that, they take up so much time. There's so many areas where you're just you're spending a lot of time doing things that are not experiencing the story and fleshing out all of these plot points that keep getting introduced. And it makes me it made me really, really concerned about how it was going to wrap it all up. It was the only thing that made me think, okay, this game can't end after Oberyn, because there's like, we still don't even know what's going on with the corrosion. You know, is it actually a curse from the gods? Like, because we're taking up too much magic, or were the gods actually holding it back? Does it have to do with the meteor? What is going on with that comet meteor thing that's being suspended in the sky that we don't get to see? We wanted to go to Astraea, I think that's the name, Astraea, to visit that one girl who I think was the second bearer. That was my theory, so that we could I don't even remember what that plot point is, to be honest. But like that's the whole reason we got Fallon. And then like that was completely forgotten. The long story short, the story wasn't satisfying. There was a lot to be desired. Did it feel complete? No. As I said, I have so many questions, so many lingering thoughts of what about this? What about that? That there's nothing. Yeah. How was the pacing? So I think as far as story beats go, I think the pacing, as far as these characters are on a journey to accomplish their goal, is actually okay. What kills the pacing is the exploration. The zones are gargantuan. They take a really long time to get through, and it just it's ridiculous in that regard. So yeah. Thoughts on the story. About 35 hours into the game, prior to approaching the cathedral, I wonder what the story of this game actually is. Yeah. I understand it's encompassed by the journey, but it feels like we're hitting story beats rather than watching a story unfold. I wrote this down, I think, this morning or last night. And I think. And I really feel that now, that we did hit story beats, but I feel like it wasn't like a book where you're traveling from page to page, and each one of those pages are connected to the previous one and to the next one and to pages before that and to pages after that. For this one, it was like a couple paragraphs on a page were connected, and then it moves on to some other paragraphs and maybe a page or two after that, and those are connected, and then it moves on to some other sort of combination. And again, there's just a lot of unanswered questions. There's talk of a war, but it's not really there. There's a war with the Arcalites, and there's ships, and there's Arcalite machines, and like we see remnants of Arcalites. We see at the end spaceships that are about to nuke the planet, but we don't have any interactions with Arcalites, and Myrna doesn't count. There's a war, but there's not a war. Like, it's a war, it's hearsay, basically. You know, it's like pretend. It's kind of strange that we don't get to experience any aspect of that war. Sure, you could probably say, well, you know, at the beginning, you know, there was some war going on, but we weren't fighting Arcalites then. I mean, it was a long time ago, but 9 days ago, but we weren't fighting Arcalites then. We were fighting, honestly, I don't know what we were fighting, but it wasn't that. There's talk of corrosion, but it's not really there. There's corroded monsters around. There are 2 zones that are like clockwork corroded zones, but where is the corrosion in the world? Mom gets corroded. Homeboy at the very beginning of the game gets corroded. Yosaurus says that he was corroded and cured of it. How many other people in this game get corroded? How many corroded people do we interact with and kind of see them suffer? I guess Home Chick Slice Sill at the end there was probably corroded somehow. Yeah. Also, Speaking of corroded, the whole thing with the crystal, did we resolve the thing with the crystal? You know what? I think this game just might not be finished. That's the only thing that makes sense to me right now. That's the only thing that makes sense. We unveiled the Sanctorium is not necessarily in it for the greater good, but it's not really there. Sanctorium is a very prevalent aspect in this game. There's talk about it. One of our members of our party is a member of the Sanctorium. One of our rivals, who's a suckafu, I forget his name. Vincent is what I want to say, but that's not his name. You know, he's part of the Sanctorium. He's a suckafu. Sanctorium are suckafus, but we don't interact with the Sanctorium. We don't get to experience how they are evil. We don't get to feel the effects of their evilness. We're just told by Alfarius, hey, guess what? The Sanctorium are evil. You knew this already, but we're letting you know anyways, because you know some other NPCs probably told you, or you know you might have clued in on some heavy-handedness, but I'm letting you know as a fact. And I wanted to experience that a little bit more. I wanted more than just characters telling me things about the Sanctorium, and that goes for a lot of aspects of this game, not just the Sanctorium itself. All of our interactions take a tell, not show approach. So in storytelling, they always like to say, show, don't tell. And I think this game does do a lot of telling, not showing. If the corrosion is ruining people's lives, we don't see the corrosion ruining people's lives. We don't see the war with the Archelites bearing down on this world and causing a lot of strife. We don't see the Sanctorium offering people methods that look good for them but are actually forms of oppression or something like that. You know, like, we're just told that all these things are happening and some of these things are bad and some of these things need to be stopped, and that's it. And I want to know more. I genuinely want to know more because the aspects of this story are interesting. I think it's interesting that we have this fantasy sci-fi setting, which never works for me, by the way. And I would say that it doesn't necessarily work for me in this case because it doesn't leverage it. If I just got those interactions and those elaborations and the showy aspect of it, I feel like I would be so on board with the story, because the beats all have really nice qualities to them. The thought of the corrosion transforming people, and that's a threat, and apparently the corrosion kind of has a mind of its own of some sort, and like they're sort of kind of emulating people and kind of like worshiping a god. Like, that's super interesting. This fight with the Archelites and how they have spaceships and they can nuke us, and they totally overpower us, but we're at war with them. Why are we at war with them? What caused us to be at war with them? What are we going to do to stop them? You know, I would have loved to learn more about that, but it's just none of that is there. There's been several villain-only scenes that just add more confusion to the story. They feel unnecessary and don't add anything for me. So a lot of games have been doing this to me, and it's really weird when you're like 12 hours into the game and you don't really understand anything, and you see this character that you've seen once, and you know they're evil. You could probably assume that they're evil, and they say some stuff like the red dirt will encompass the yellow rock, and when that happens, the sun will shine bright over the cascading sea and create the wormhole of my dreams. And it's like, none of this means anything to me. What the heck are you talking about? Are we gonna get a tidal wave that's gonna destroy the world? Or is the world going to go into this whirlpool? Is the sun going to explode? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what this context is in relation to. And by the time I get to the point right now, I don't remember those scenes because they were pointless then and I've forgotten them. And even if I go back to them now, I probably still won't understand what they are. Myrna leaving the party was anticipated, but it was very confusing why. First, she attacks Celine, and we don't get much explanation for it. Then she tries to kill Darian and runs off. I remember the scene with the radio, but I'm just lost with this. So here's another thing that didn't really have any elaboration. It just kind of happens and we're expected to go with it. But that's really something that you need an explanation for. What the heck was going on with that? You don't just attack two party members and then, oh, she got away. Like, what? Sucker food? No. You killed that sucker. I don't think so. It's ridiculous. Whoops, sorry. I was tapped in. Writing. I normally skip over this topic because, you know, writing is typically satisfactory. But I'm gonna make a note to say that I do think that the way this game is written is not really coherent and not really good. But I do think that this is really difficult to say. I don't think it's written well, but I think it's written really well. Like from the characters to their interactions to how they approach scenarios that they're given, and how characters kind of react to the situations that they're put in. It presents an interesting thing where, like, the game, the frame of, I don't know how to really explain this. There's really well written parts in this game. You know, there's really well written sections, and they're all throughout this game, and they all revolve around its characters. And because the characters are so central to all the plot points that are happening and things like that, it creates really powerful moments, such as the scene with Syl after we fight her when she's like corroded or something. You know, like there's really powerful scenes and there's really well written moments. But the game isn't written well because it doesn't connect things together, I guess. It doesn't create a flow that you can follow for the story. It doesn't create, I guess, a narrative that you can follow. It just creates these nice moments that are memorable to you as the game goes on. Again, a really weird way, and I wish I could explain this better, but hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. For characters, I really like Yosaurus. He's a cheeky character with some heartwarming personality to him. So other than the thing where he's like, I'm destroying the box and you have to chase after me so that I can prove a point that you don't get corrosion for being in the Clockwork Fields, like that part was bonkers. But everything else about the character is amazing. I love the way he's written. I both love and hate in a good way that a lot of his lines are so quick. He's by far my favorite character because he's the most prominent. I really like Syl as well, and was really disappointed that we didn't get more time spent with Syl in the very beginning, along with all those other characters, because those were some really nice characters, and I really felt the camaraderie with those characters. It was just so nice to be a part of that little moment that they had together. It was at the very beginning of the game too, and normally that stuff is never memorable to me, but that's one of the most memorable scenes in this game, is a scene at the very beginning where these characters are just talking to each other, like right before they all die. Yeah. Fallon is a suckafoo. Fallon is a straight up suckafoo. Not only does she have some really pointless lines, she doesn't add anything to the story, and now that I've beaten the game, she has no purpose to the story. We don't need an airship, so why are you here? We're not going to Astraea because there is no Astraea, because the game is over. We got credits. I don't know. Gameplay mechanics and design. What gameplay elements stand out? Okay. Actually, before I get there, I reminded myself that there's that priest guy that totally destroyed us in this tower, and there was no resolution with that guy either. We did get that tiny little scene after the credits where apparently him and Cora are in cahoots or something like that, but that's bullcrap. Anyways, what gameplay elements stand out? I don't believe this game leverages its indie game status in a positive way. A lot of features and ideas are implemented, but they don't possess a polish, playtesting, or foresight into their purpose. This is a really complicated way of me saying that there's a lot of technical problems with this game. And there's also a lot of ideation problems with this game, which I'll just continue with what I have written down, and maybe I'll come back to the point that I was thinking of. The minimap is the only map available for traversing. However, you can't zoom in or out to view it on the bigger map that shows the entire floor. So, if I were to go into the game right now, we're not going to go into the game right now, but you've seen me play the game. In dungeons, you have a map, but you can't zoom in on the map. You can't inspect things. There's no markers on the map that will help you see things. All you get is the mini map, and the only thing on mini maps are save points / teleport points, camping rest points, and those Stonehenge places where they have side quests or something. I can't think of any other markers on the mini map. In town you have a variety of other things, and I guess there's side quests too, but whatever. I think there's a lot of missed opportunity and a lot of failed follow through on that. There's a lot of things that should be on the minimap. There's a lot of interaction that should be on the minimap. For these zones that are so big, for me to press the map button and go to the world map is not helpful for me. I want to see what's in the zone, and if I want to go somewhere that's somewhere else in the world, or I want to view something, then maybe I zoom out, or maybe I press a different button to access that. So there's a lot to be desired with the mini-map. There's also all that element stuff. I ignored all of that. I don't even remember any of what was going on with that, to be honest. I don't have it written down here, and hopefully I'm going to write this down right now because I'm going to forget about it. It's about combat. Yeah, so back onto the stuff about polished playtesting and foresight. Only one quest can be tracked at a time. So this is another one of those things where they give you a lot of side quests, and I appreciate all the side quests. I stopped doing all the side quests because, I kind of got tired of reading side quests, and there's other reasons for that too. But because you can only track one side quest at a time, and because on the map you can only see the side quests that are like one side quest that are being done, and you have like this compass thing, it makes it kind of annoying to finish a quest and then go to the next quest in your menu. Like, you have to do a lot of menuing. Being able to see all of your quests, or just being able to track multiple quests, would alleviate a lot of the problems there. That being said, it's cool that they update you when they are completed. I do like that when you complete a quest, you get this little thing at the bottom that sparkles and it says like, hey, you completed this quest. Really nice. A lot of games don't actually update you when you complete a quest. It's also cool that you can turn in hunts at any hunt board. Gotta give them props for that. I wasn't expecting that. It doesn't look like you can pick up any hunt quests from any board though. So like, for example, if there was a hunt board in this room right here to kill some of those little annoying teleporting dogs, I can't go to a hunt board at the very beginning of the game and pick up that quest. I think that's kind of a missed opportunity. However, hunt boards don't appear on the minimap and can be sometimes missed. I missed a hunt board. I missed 2 hunt boards, and got lucky with the one in Tier Canis, or whatever that city's called. I got lucky with that one, but I didn't get the one in Jagholm. I totally I just didn't see it. That should totally be something that's on the minimap that you can see, or a side quest icon or something. Large outdoor environments that facilitate crafting resources, but are otherwise empty and devoid of visual interest. Small, rich areas that are dense with unique visual interests would have been more impressive to me. So one of my bigger problems with this game is that all the areas are gargantuan, and it takes a really long time to get through them, but there's really nothing going on in those areas. There's collection points, but the collection points aren't really all that interesting. They serve one very specific purpose, and that's crafting items. And something I'll get to later maybe is that crafting really all that necessary in this game? Is crafting really intertwined with anything? Probably not. It's probably not all that important. Yeah, I got some really nice items out of it, but Darian gets this bomb diggity weapon at the end, doing no crafting whatsoever. And some of the other items that I get, I found or something like that. So is it necessary? Probably not. Well, at least in my experience, probably not. But I don't remember if there's other difficulties or something like that. But yeah. But anyways, I would much rather there be smaller zones where in every direction you look, there is something interesting happening. Maybe there's that Stonehenge thing in one direction. Maybe there's a town in another direction. Maybe there's this very unique landmark that has some stuff going on with it, some unique enemies that are around it that are maybe needed for a quest or something. And then maybe in the behind direction, there's some other unique landmark or collection points, or there's a lake or something like that. Just a zone that is unique to itself, that has visual interest no matter where you go. As it is now, it's just more or less a field. And in that field, there's a lot of grass, there's some tree-like fauna, flora, what have you, and there's just enemies sprinkled around, and then there's collection points all over the place, and then there's treasure chests that are in the most randomest of places sometimes, and then there's something else that appears on the minimap, those puzzle points, which I do like, actually, and I don't have those written down here, but I do like those puzzle points. They're not explained at all, but I do like those. It's definitely a preference for me, but I also feel that this game doesn't leverage its expansive areas. There's quite a few areas in this game that are essentially long winding corridors, and you have to walk through those corridors, and it takes forever, and there's nothing going on. There's nothing to look at that's unique to those areas. It's just long, narrow corridors where nothing is happening. There's a crafting system, but it's all separated. The types of crafting can't be accessed together when attempting to craft. Different benches are needed. Additionally, those benches aren't consolidated in one area. They can be spread out. So this is one of those things where I feel like the foresight was maybe missing, or maybe the play testing wasn't there, or maybe this was already implemented and just couldn't be fixed or something, or changed. But the multiple levels of crafting benches, it was kind of obnoxious. Especially when I sometimes I felt like I had to go across the city or town or whatever to go from crafting bench to crafting bench. And then I had to go from vendor to a crafting bench to a different vendor to a different vendor to a crafting bench. And it just creates a lot of unnecessary complication. Just have one crafting bench, have a bunch of tabs at the top of weapon, armor, gems, or crystals. What else can you craft? Ingredients, whatever. And I might be missing something, but like, you just have that, and then once you select that, below that you have all the characters, defaults to Darian at the first one, and you have all his trees, and you can go through all of those. And when you want to go back to the previous menu, you just press B and you're back to the previous one. You could select what crafting bench you want to go to, and if you want to get out, you press B again. I feel like that's an easy fix for me, and it saves all the frustration of all of that. Sprint button being the interact button on the controller means I'm pressing the sprint button after I do most things. So this is one of those things where if you're playing the game, me as someone who has done QA testing before, this is something that I would point out. And I'm sure my boss would be like, that's totally silly, don't report that. But when you're playing a game and you have a button that does two functions, I feel like you want one of you want one of the interactions of that button to not interfere with the other button. And you have two choices. You can toggle it, which is what I had, which was super annoying, or you can hold it down. But in either instance, you're still letting go. You're disabling your sprint to collect something. I feel like sprint should have been on something else, or collecting should have been on something else. Or allow rebinding keys so it's not your problem. Team energy doesn't seem to be meaningful, although I'd prefer it that way because I'd rather it not be there. Yeah, team energy. I don't think I've had to worry about this thing a single time in this game. I've gotten warnings that my buffs that I didn't have were reduced. I have 21 energy. I have never been to 0 team energy. With the exclusion of right now, I don't think I've ever been below like 70%. I don't know why it's there. I don't know its purpose. I don't understand what the thought process of including it is. And it feels like waste. It feels like a waste. There could have been so much more done. Came across a quest on day 4 where an NPC had a chest behind him. He wanted 100 money to open it, which I accepted. The NPC then changed his mind, increasing the price each time I accepted the new price, all the way up to 1,000 money. Throughout the dialogue, the NPC warned me it was not worth it, and after viewing the contents of the chest, it was in fact not worth it. This quest has hindered the tone of the game for me. Okay, so I know I'm being a little petty here, alright? It's just a Sucklefu side quest. But at the same time, this side quest is one of those things that sets a precedent for me. It doesn't have to do with a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, or what have you. It's one of those things where it's, are you like, this is really a side quest that you put into the game? You're gonna make me spend 1,000 money and go through all this dialogue of this character telling me that it's not worth it. And like, sure, I can believe that it's not worth it, but I go through all of that and it's just a potion. And at least as far as I got, there's nothing else to it. It makes me concerned about other side quests in the game, because that side quest is like literally a waste of time. It offers you nothing of value, and it makes you paranoid about quests in the future. This is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do side quests anymore. It's because I could go through an entire side quest and it could just jabate me at the end. There was no reason for this quest to exist, and if there was, I feel like it should not have resolved the way it resolved to lead me believe that it was done the way it was. I didn't like that quest, obviously. I wrote that twice. Dead party members receive 100% experience. Props. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. HP and MP are fully restored after each battle, including dead party members. Very cool. Extremely cool. I was extremely happy with this. I just remembered that there's a cardinal sin that I need to add. Thank you, me. Yeah, I don't think very many games do this. I'm very hesitant to say this, but I do feel like this game should not have that mechanic because of the difficulty level of this game, or at least as I experienced it. And because it allows you to leverage so many. I don't want to say broken because I didn't do anything that was broken, but it allows you to abuse skills that you probably shouldn't be allowed to abuse. Like Shadow Strike, for example. That move is so good. World map navigation can definitely feel like a chore, especially during the first Conclave Corroded Human sequence. Just a lot of traveling with very little going on. I kind of touched on this already. The world map travel just needed to be improved. I don't think I have this in here, but being able to teleport all around was actually kind of cool. I think the cost of teleporting was kind of pointless. It didn't hinder me at all, so I don't know why that was a thing. But I also like that teleporting is a toggle in the options, as well as being able to save anywhere. I'm of the opinion that you should be able to save anywhere in any modern game nowadays, but if you want to add a toggle to the point where some people can make it a little bit more difficult for themselves, I'm all for it. That, give people more options. That's great. 18 hours in, and I'm still waiting for the crystal system to expand. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this. Weapon levels to facilitate crystal slot expansion seems like an interesting idea, except swapping out weapons and in turn crystals every upgrade isn't fun. I totally forgot about this. So the crystal system never actually opened up. I was expecting there to be some sort of mechanic or revelation where I can open up other paths and start putting in more crystals. And so eventually the entire sphere grid of the weapon could have crystals in them. But that never happened. It was always just one path. And that's incredibly disappointing, especially because there's so many paths that are worthless. Not worthless in the sense of the stats they give, but worthless in the sense of they don't have enough slots. Why are there paths that have 3 slots on them, and then there's another path that has 8 slots on them? There's no reason to choose the 3 slots. Also, there's certain paths that have super uber abilities on them, which I never seen proc, by the way. And then other paths don't have those uber abilities on them. And other weapons don't have those uber abilities on them. It's incredibly confusing what was going on with this weapon system. And I don't get it. It's another system where I look at it and I say, this was an idea where it's a cool idea, and then they implement it the way it is in this game, but it needed to go like 3 or 4 extra steps into how it works to make it interesting, to make it unique to Edge of Eternity. And it doesn't go there. This is again gonna sound harsh, but I feel like it does the bare minimum. And I think a lot of the mechanics, a lot of the aspects and elements of this game do the bare minimum. In terms of their both fresh takes on ideas, unique ideas, and standard implementations of past ideas that other games have done or something like that. All right, combat. bonus objectives are super cool. So I haven't come across a lot of games that do bonus objectives in the way that Edge of Eternity does. And I think that other games need to do something like this, because it's not enough to go into like a random fight or just a fight that doesn't really matter to you and, you know, just wipe the floor with it. It's really cool to have this optional objective available to you that allows you to gain something from that fight that you wouldn't otherwise get, or maybe you have a lesser chance of getting, you know, something like that. So I really appreciated going into a fight and seeing the bonus objective, you know, oh, don't move characters into the same cell. Oh, I got this. Let me get that free 100 monies in my pocket. Or, ooh, this quest gives me some crafting material that I don't care about. You know, if I get it, I get it. I don't. Ooh, this one gives me a gem that I've never seen before. I need to make sure that I accomplish this bonus objective. It just adds another layer to the combat that is so nice. And I'm actually kind of disappointed that there was a lot of the bosses. After a while, they stopped appearing on bosses. It was after the boss where I didn't meet the bonus objective. It was the praying mantis one, I believe, which honestly, I'm still kind of a little disappointed that I didn't reload to get that, because like I had that in the bag. Let's see. Setting character facing in combat can be obnoxious. I would have liked to see a confirmation or a separate step before completing the move. Think tactics games. So, in order to set facing, you have to hold down the button. And then you have to finagle with what direction you want to go in. And it's not that easy with a joystick. And it's probably even more obnoxious with a keyboard. What I would have liked to see is either a confirmation. So you go, you set your facing, and it says yes, no, yes. Or they do it like tactics games where you move, and then after the move has completed, then the facing appears. You don't hold down any buttons. The facing is the next step, and you choose your facing, you press A, and you're done. Both of those are essentially the same amount of button presses, but it stops any like errors or anything like that. And ultimately, it didn't really matter all that much for me, but it's one of those things where character facing, again, I guess I don't have this written down, and I don't really talk about this, but I don't think the combat is that interesting. And doing some interesting things with the character facing, other than just having backstabbing, would be another fascinating layer to it. Having attacks that hit in front of you and behind you. Having the ability to affect areas of the battlefield, a nexus on the battlefield, create a rock that enemies can't move into, so you can create choke points or something like that. There's a lot of missed opportunities with the combat, and ultimately the nexus system just doesn't work for me. The idea that you can move into different zones and that they can have unique properties is cool. I'm not the biggest fan of how little there is to it. So I think it's cool that, you know, like there can be crystals and things like that, and they can affect the battlefield, but they don't really matter. They don't do anything, you know, like it's insignificant essentially. You can't blow up a nexus and have an enemy just instantly die or something like that. You can't pick up a nexus and move it to a different area of the battlefield to create like some sort of terrain finagling. You can't do anything interesting with the combat. It's another example to me of it does the bare minimum. They said, hey, it would be kind of cool if we had like a grid-like system, a hex grid for the combat. And they're like, yeah, okay. And oh, we want to do a turn-based combat. Okay. And they do those things, but they don't leverage the strengths of what those two can be together. Because when you introduce a grid-like system, you're now introducing tactics. So you need to think about tactics games and how they do it. They have zone controls. They have abilities to hinder your enemies and kind of force your enemies to go into certain paths. In tactics games, there's different elevations, there's bonuses and penalties for engaging with different heights and elevations. There's areas that you cannot interact with, you cannot move in. There's areas where they take more movement from you. This isn't a tactics game, but it takes... If you're introducing the Nexus system as it's implemented, I feel like the inspiration is tactics game. And the ability to pull from a tactics game's ideas and add them into Edge of Eternity would have made this combat immensely more interesting and dynamic on top of that. Last point for the combat, the game is really easy. I'm not really one to complain about a game being easy. I'd much rather a game be too easy than a game be too hard. I'd much rather breeze through a game than to struggle through a few, multiple, a lot, or, you know, just a couple areas of the game. I'd like to experience a game without feeling frustrated at any point because of its combat. However, I do think that at least the experience that I got, there was no challenge whatsoever. And a lot of that is attributed to the special attacks. I think the special attacks are they show up too frequently and they do way too much damage. And yeah, I think they just remove a lot of the effort that you need to put into to kind of doing some sort of strategizing. As a matter of fact, that last boss fight with like the zones and you had to walk into the zones to avoid the instant death, that's an idea right there of how to leverage the Nexus system. The shame that it was only for like one fight, but it might have been for like two fights, but I think it was only for one fight, whatever. But anyways, the game is really easy. I wouldn't have mind a little bit more challenge, personally. Just throwing that out there. Dungeons. I didn't have any favorite dungeons. Yeah. I don't think there was any issues with practical dungeon design, interestingly enough. Cardinal sins. Removing a key party member without sufficient replacement. Myrna. Holy cow, when I lost Myrna, I was in hot water. It took a long time before I got Yosaurus. And during that time, I was struggling. Yikes. Backup party earns less experience. So I actually tested this out. I'm so glad that I did, because your backup party, they don't get any experience. They need to be in your active party or they get nothing. And that ain't cool. That ain't cool at all. Let me see. Any other cardinal sins now that I got this here? They do technically force you to use certain party members, but it doesn't really matter all too much. Yeah, I think that's it. On to miscellaneous sound and music. I actually added this game to my my queue, I guess, for Level Up This Playlist to listen to its OST, because the soundtrack for this game, I would say overall, it's probably like not that interesting, but there are a few songs on there where I'm just like, I need to listen to these to see if they work outside the game. This song that's playing right now is probably not all that interesting for a playlist, but I really like, you know, the choir chorus kind of music and whatnot, and I just it's nice, you know. So there was a lot of tracks that I didn't really jive with, but there was also those, you know, like 4 or 5 tracks where I was just like, ooh, you know, we rocking out to this. There was that one battle theme where I was like, yeah, I want to have more than this battle theme, and you know, we got more of the other ones, but you know, on top of that, you know, we actually got multiple battle themes, and that's not a very common thing nowadays, I feel like. So I applaud this game for its music. Voice acting. The majority of the voice acting is actually really nice. I think Celine is especially well done. I might be the only person to say this, but I like the voice acting in this game. I don't even think I want to say the majority of the voice. Well, yeah, the majority of the voice acting. There's a couple characters that that could be a little bit better. But, you know, when I say the majority, I'm saying like 90%. 95% or something like that. A lot of the characters in this game are just really well portrayed for me. Celine, I really feel like I get emotion from her character when she's talking. I feel like when she's disappointed, or she's looking forward to something, or she's poking fun at Darian, like, I feel that personality come through. Her character is so well done. And then Yosaurus, his voice actor is incredible. His character is so well done, and he just does such a good job of emphasizing the right words and sounding annoyed and sounding like bored and curious. They do such a good job. So props to the voice actors. Y'all knocked it out of the park with this one. For graphics, I think this game has a kind of uniqueness to its look. I feel like the character models, the technical aspects, there's a lot of problems with them. Like if I were to tab into the game here, I can't zoom in, but I don't know if you guys have been paying a whole lot of attention, but if you can see on you guys can't see my mouse cursor, but on Celine's arm, there's some of the, like, her, I don't know, jacket. I don't know what that is, but we'll just say her jacket. It's actually going through her arm, and you can actually see that in cutscenes. And so things like that, it brings me back to the QA days. And it's like, okay, QA testers, they totally saw that. They brought it up to the developers and like, hey, you know, this cutscene, this cutscene, this cutscene, basically every cutscene, this character has this problem where the vertices just need to be pumped out just a little bit more so that they don't pierce her arm so that it pops out through her coat. And a developer looks at that and they're like, okay, that's such a minor thing. We'll push that, like all the way to the bottom because that really doesn't matter. And it just never got to fixing. And I feel like there's a lot of things. The animations, the walking animations in the game just don't really work all that well. There's a little bit of there's like a springiness to it. Let me turn on my controller. There's a springiness to like the ankles. If you can see it, like it kind of like flicks forward and then it goes back. It just doesn't quite work all that well. So like the animations are just not all that quite polished. The visual looks are okay in other areas, not okay in other areas. I didn't have this written down. I thought I wrote this down, but like the lip sync is really weird. Oberon's lip sync is not really what a lip sync should look like. So there's a lot of technical aspects about the visuals and how the visuals interact with the character models and how the models interact with the world that just doesn't quite work. There's been a couple instances where topology doesn't have collision attached to it. There's been a couple of instances where there was collision, but like the rock was like below the collision, or the rock was like to the left of the collision or something like that, but they forgot to remove the collision. There's just, like little things like that, also big things like that. Also, what's up, Chimpanzee Esquire? What's up? Like visually, I'm not bothered by the game. It's just the technical imperfections that stand out. And because, like I said at the beginning, the technical aspects of the game, there's a lot of imperfections that they're so prevalent and they're always in your face and you're always going to notice them because it's like, oh, that's still there and it's not fixed and it wasn't for that previous cutscene, it's actually for this one too. And it just keeps going and going and going and all that stuff just layers on top of each other. Replay value. Does the game offer additional story content in a second playthrough to warrant playing the game again? I don't think so. So what's my playtime? 38 hours, 47 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna say no. Again, I feel like there's just too much missing from this game. So the only reason to replay it is hopefully they add the rest of the game and you get to play it. But I saw that I was talking to Crayson a little bit earlier today and found out today that the game is actually going to have a physical release sometime in 2022. So I mean, that's not a lot of time to add the rest of this game, if there is a rest of this game. And if there isn't the rest of this game somewhere out there, then yikes. For the other section, or stuff miscellaneous, I guess, the amount of customization options is cool. Changing subtitle size, different levels of immersion settings, borderless windowed mode, tab out sound, all of that stuff is really cool. Also, tab out sound, borderless windowed mode. This is an indie game, and I can't tell you how many indie games don't have borderless windowed mode and don't have tab out sound. So I gotta give props where they're due. I love to see it, and good job for doing something that other indie games don't do for some reason. Alrighty. The last section that I have if the developer is watching, I don't know if you made it this far, but if you made it this far, Edge of Eternity feels like a collection of new ideas that are developed to the point that they function, but they don't go that extra step to make them unique or special. For example, there are tactical elements, and the game wants you to be tactical, but there isn't actually anything tactical about the game, nor does it give you the tools to be tactical. So I kind of touched on this earlier, that I feel like there's inspiration being taken from other genres, not necessarily games, but other genres, but it's minimum implementation. And I would have just liked to see the combat taken further, because as it is now, it just doesn't serve any purpose. There's no extra sauce or spice to make it nice. It's just bland, and it needs that extra sauce. It needs that spice, you know. It needs a lot. It is boiled chicken with no seasoning, no salt, no pepper, no nothing. You know, we need some more on there to make it interesting. And that just goes for the majority of what I've experienced from this game. There just needed to be that extra aspect added on, or extra 4 aspects added on to really make. I really want to stay away from saying like make this game stand out. I want to lean more towards the give the mechanic or the element like an actual purpose, because a turn-based combat system is just very blah. You know, you can do any game out there that does a turn-based combat system is very blah. It's what you add on top of it and what you do to that turn-based combat system to make it stand out and make it more of your kind of experience in your game. And so I feel like the Nexus aspect was added to this game to maybe give it that, but the Nexus system doesn't actually accomplish it. It just it doesn't add a layer of complexity. It doesn't add a layer of fun. It's just what it is, I guess. It needed more to it. You know, alongside a lot of the other mechanics, like the crystal mechanic, for example, and all the other stuff I talked about. There are a considerable amount of technical problems: animations, lip sync, model clipping, head seams on characters like Ysaurus and Korra, user interface bugs, typos, voice acting not matching the subtitles, among others. There's a crap ton of technical issues in this game, and I think most people probably won't notice a lot of it, but I probably missed even more. But I did notice a great deal of things. For example, Thea, when she's doing her field attack, she actually does not complete the animation for that. You know, just stuff like that. All of that stuff piles onto each other, and I'm really not one to linger on bugs or typos or anything of that, but the more consistent those things happen, the bigger issue it becomes. And I feel like it was very consistent throughout this game that those elements were there. There's a combat system that tries to bring something new to the table but doesn't actually leverage that new aspect. I think I touched on this quite a bit, so we can move on. The game feels like the quality assurance overwhelmed the developers. There's so much to fix that it feels like they needed to put out the game for better or for worse. So I definitely don't want to assume the circumstances of how this game was released, but It feels that way. As someone who has done quality assurance out there for video games, I've seen how the pipelines work, and I've seen how priorities are approached, and sometimes things are ignored that we on the QA team think are very important. There's been times where a bug that seemed very insignificant was fixed, whereas a bug that on our side thought was very significant wasn't fixed. And we're like, well, it's not our game, so you choose what you want to do. We documented it, so there you go. I can definitely see that this game would have a long list of bug fixes. And I think this game was officially released out of early access in June of this year, 2021 or so. So it's only been about 3 months or so. So I would imagine that more patches to fix bugs and things like that will come out soon. But at the same time, this game was in early access. So that really just makes me wonder how all of this stuff was approached in early access, and what kind of plan there is for how it's going to be approached now that the game has been officially released, and now that there's going to be a physical release of the game in the future/near future. Makes me concerned. Because I do feel like there is a good game here. And I think it deserves to be, again, it's going to sound harsh, but I think it deserves to be given a better shot than what it has right now. But then again, for that to be accomplished in my eyes, I feel like there needs to be so much more added to the game that it's just not feasible. With all that said, I feel as though the game just ends up being unremarkable in the gameplay department. It plays and feels like an indie developed game for many of the wrong reasons, and yet the story and the characters managed to shine through for me. I wouldn't say the story. This was written, I think, like 2 days ago or something like that. At least the not anymore. The story. The story was picking up, and then it just kind of died for me. Darian, Celine, and Yosaurus really stand out to me as being themselves. Whether it is realistic or not doesn't matter. They feel like actual characters in this game, and that's a unique experience for me. So this was actually one of the more special things about this game, which actually, like I said at the beginning, that this game, the characters are what make this game special for me, and it's not the story, it's not the gameplay. I really don't know. I can't think of off the top of my head if I've experienced a game where the characters are like their own being. They have their own personality. They portray themselves as that character. It's a very weird thing to talk about. And so I don't know if I'm explaining myself properly, but I guess a good way to try to explain it is a lot of characters out there exhibit tropes, and you can spot those tropes on those characters very easily. And these characters, they do have tropes, but I feel like these characters are beyond their tropes, or at least, in my experience. I think these characters create tropes that are unique to themselves, with the exception of Thea. I've avoided it the entire time, but Thea is 100% GLaDOS. I don't know what they were doing with that, but we're just gonna give you that. But characters like Celine and Yosaurus are so very much themselves, and that stands out to me so much. And then there's Darian, who's who just kind of has those aspects to him that feel like I've never experienced a character like this before. And I really like that. I think the characters are the strongest aspect of this game for me. And their interactions with each other were absolutely the highlights of this game for me. Again, I'm honestly heartbroken that Syl didn't rejoin my party, because she was one of the best characters in this game, and that was based off of like an hour of gameplay where she probably had, I don't know, like 15 lines of dialogue or something like that. Like, she was just so well done, and her voice actor was so good, expressed so much emotion and care, and it was just great. So, yeah, I think to end this is that I think the characters are definitely the best thing about this game for me. Everything else feels like it needs to be improved on. There's a lot of lingering things with the story. There's a lot of things on the story that need to be fleshed out. There's areas where I need more, and there's world map exploration where I need less of. There would be a lot of improvements that I would suggest to the game that are probably not very feasible for a game that's already released. So overall thoughts. I can't really say that I like the game. Because of the gameplay and because of the story, but what I can say is that the characters are great. The writing for the characters are great, and I did have fun playing the game, despite the flaws. So there is that. But that's going to wrap it up for me. I think this was like an hour and 30 minutes of thoughts and whatnot, and all that other good stuff. So yeah, I'm going to call it quits. So thanks for watching, appreciate it. I think the plan is to return tomorrow at 5:30 a.m. Pacific, play something. We'll see what happens though. Might not, but we probably will. But anyways, peace.